Shalom. I'm coming to you today. I am Apostle Newsome, and to some of those who are in the Christian world, I'm Apostle, I'm Bishop. Those who are my Hebrew friends, and my Hebrew name, Benjamin Ben Yah. And so I'm excited coming to you today, and I want to be sharing some things with you. Today, it's going to be interesting. Some of the topics that we're going to be talking about, a familiar topic, and a topic that has been discussed. But we just want to have discussion on today about this and look through the scripture and see what it says. And I think you'll be interested in what the scripture says and what's going on. Today, I want to talk about the rapture. Yes, I did say the rapture. And so I've heard about the rapture all my life, and I'm quite some of you have heard as well. And so what is it about the rapture? What is this about the rapture? And so I just want to be sharing some things with you, and I think it would be quite interesting to you, and I think you will be blessed to hear what the Word says. I want to share this with you that so that we can kind of follow as I go. You can follow the path, the journey that we go on. Because we're going to go on a journey, and it's going to be an interesting journey. But I want you to kind of understand the journey that we're going to go on. And because, as I know it, we have had the Christian Bible, the King James, and it's divided, the Old and the New Testament. And a lot of times I share wherever I go so that we can have a better understanding that when Yeshua the Messiah walked on the earth, the disciples, even before they became apostles and while they were apostles, they did not have a New Testament. And I'm quite sure most of us can agree to that. Even if you think about it, that those who don't even know, that if you just even think about it, you'd be thinking, wait a minute, they did not have a New Testament. They was actually in doing the work that was written about them at a later time. So if they did not have a New Testament, and the interesting thing about it is when you think about their message and who they were talking to and where they was getting that information from. Well, there's a word in the Hebrew that says remaz. You got to go back to come back forward, because this is what they did. They didn't have a New Testament. They didn't have nothing in front of them. Everything that they had was in back of them. And they had what they called the law and the prophets. So you go back to the very origin, the very beginning. And a lot of us talk about the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. And in the Torah, there was the law, the commandments, the statutes. And so that's what they had. And then from there, the writings of the prophets. And so that's what they had. They had that, and they went back and then came back forward to their present time. Here's the prophets. The prophets did not have nothing in front of them. What the New Testament, or those who were born later on, they was not born at that particular time, so they did not have a New Testament. What the prophets had was just behind them, and that was the first 5 books, which is the Holy Bible, the Holy Scripture, they had behind them. And in that, they had the commandments, statutes, and ordinance. And that's what they had. And so what we want to do is go on the journey. Because we want to understand the writings and the understanding of what's in the mind of the apostles and what was being said. Because we're going to notice something here. And what you're going to notice is that they go back, then they come forward again. Yes, they do. Just for an example, even when I was coming up in the Christian church, and I used to hear that when Yeshua came out from the wilderness experience, and he fasted 40 days, and he was hungry, and he quoted, there was something that he said, I thought it was phenomenal, and it was always that it was written. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh. And so, I just thought that by him being who he is, that was just great wisdom, in which it is. But he said, it is written, meaning that it was written before his time. So he had to go back to find it, knowing that it was written at some point, to say, it is written. And so what happened is, he went back to the first 5 books of the Holy Scripture in Deuteronomy. And where you find that in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, and you find that very word in the Scripture, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of Yahweh does man live. And that kind of broke my thoughts for a minute, based upon thinking that Yeshua had everything. And he did. But what it showed me was that he had the Scripture in the flesh, that he learned in the flesh, that goes back to the very beginning to come back forward to deal with at that present time and even to go in the future. So, as we go on the journey, and what is it about this rapture? What is it about the rapture? That's what we're going to talk about. What is it about the rapture? And so, if you got pencil, paper, get your pencil and paper, get your scripture. That's what I want you to do. We're going to go on a journey. We're going to go backwards, come forward to our present, so that we can understand where we're going. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. So now, I would like for you to go with me to 1 Corinthians. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. And I'm going to be reading from my Hebrew Bible, the book of Yahweh. And so, as we go with these lessons, I can also, at some point, I will get my King James so that we can compare, and so you can see even in the King James as well. Because there's hidden truths that we just don't see, because a lot of times there's a veil over our eyes. And so what I really want to do is take the veil off of the eyes, to be lifted off the eyes so their mind can be open to what's going on. And I know that for some it's going to challenge your ideology, it's going to challenge your religious background, it's going to challenge tradition. And it's okay. And that's a wonderful thing that you've been challenged. Hoping through all of this that you are provoked to really seek the truth and understand it. That's what I hope that this comes out of this. Okay? So now, let's go into one of the letters of Paul, a letter to Corinthians, to the Corinthians. And so we got to understand, it is a letter. It's a letter that states that he was asked a question. And so in the letter is a response to questions that they asked him while he was in prison or house arrest. He was able to receive questions, and he responded with letters. And so I just want to get into one of the letters in 1 Corinthians, and let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Chapter 15, very familiar, chapter 15, and we're going to go to, let's look at this, verses 51. 51. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51. And this is what it says. Behold, I show you a secret truth. Just in itself, I show you a secret truth that there's things that need to be revealed that you don't even know yet. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. Verse 52. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we will be changed. Verse 53. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. And verse 54. So when this corruptible will have put on incorruption, and this mortal will have put on immortality, then will be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. And we've heard this many times, especially verse 52. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we will be changed. I tell you, that is exciting. That is exciting. And so the question to me was, is he prophetically speaking forward? Or is he speaking something going back and coming forward to his present to go forward again? These are some of the things we need to know. Is he speaking prophetically, or just prophetically speaking forward? Or is he reimagining, going back, then coming back to his present, then that we could go into the future, or prophetically going into the future? This is something that we need to understand. Because number one, it is a letter. It is a letter it's a response to questions that was asked by a group of people, a nation of people. And so as I think about this, and so just these things that we heard heard about going to be caught up in the air and things like that. We've heard that when the trumpet sound, we want to be ready when all these things take place. And so we have different type of movies, Left Behind, and see the different movies where people get caught up in the scripture, and that depicts that one's going to be in the bed and another one's going to be lifted up and going to be gone and disappear. We've heard a lot about those things, and yes, I taught on those things, I preached on those things, I had glory outbreak dances on those messages, and that we're going to be caught up, that one day we're going to be caught up in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, in the air. And that's where a lot of us are at. But there's always been some kind of controversy, because number one, rapture is not in the scripture. Rapture is a Greek word that when it is defined means caught up. Rapture is not in the scripture. And so what took place was they took caught up, and here's the word rapture, and now when we interpret or define it, it means caught up. To be caught up, to go up. To go up. And so there are many people they are deciding whether or not, if this was, excuse me, I forgot to turn my phone off. And so some people are deciding whether or not, if this was something, is it really going to happen? Are we going to really be caught up in the air to meet him? I know I thought those questions. And some of you are still thinking about that today. And so let's go to a few more scriptures. Okay? Let's look at 1 Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. What does it say? 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And let's look at, I'll start reading at verse 13. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. But I do not want you to be ignorant. This is now, Saul is now talking to the Thessalonians. And it seems like they're kind of like having some of the same questions that they have, that the Corinthians have. So he's kind of dealing with them on the same measure about the resurrection and death of the Messiah. And it says,